Hello, Barry.
Hello,
Welcome
mate.
to the Naked Eye podcast.
Very excited to be here. It's a great title. I really like it.
So, before we get into it, why don't you just take a moment to let us know a little bit about who you are, and
Sure.
we can take it from there.
Sure. Look, I'm just a normal person, if you like, in the street. And I started with wearing glasses when I was 17. And I sort of didn't like them that much, but I sort of needed them to see the blackboard. That was really what I needed them. So for the first 12 months, I sort of took them off where I can. I was a bit shy wearing them. Back in the 80s, it was a bit dorky seeing them, early 80s. Anyway, so this sort of happened, and about 2 years later, I recognised I was wearing them more and more. And so by the time I was 32, I was actually wearing them not only full time, but I was wearing glasses, those multifocal glasses where you're sort of looking up and looking down in order to see. And some of it was looking into the distance, some of it was looking up close. So I tended to be walking around the world sort of doing this, depending on the distance I needed to see. But I can remember I went to 3 optometrists, something prompted me. I got a prescription, I said, oh, I'm not too sure. And I went to another optometrist, and each one of the 3 gave me a different prescription, until finally I ended up with this really thick pair of lenses and for seeing and also for reading. And I remember saying, these feel too strong. And the response was, well, you get used to it.
Yeah.
That's the first response. And not only will you get used to it, but somehow I thought, well, gee, my eyes are going to get bad enough that they'll get used to it. Like, that was my immediate thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sort of said, are you sure these are right? And the optometrist said, well, what do you expect? You're in your mid-40s. These are glasses for someone in their mid-40s. I mean, hang on, I'm 32. And so there was like a 13-year gap there already.
Yeah.
That my eyes had deteriorated 13 years worse than most people at my age. So I was sort of really concerned about this. So I sort of wasn't really happy. And at the same time, I took my son to a behavioural optometrist who suggested some exercises for him. And a bit like you with your story, I remember you telling me about your story about that one thing that triggered it. And the one thing for me was this optometrist turned around to me, he said, what about you? And I immediately had this stuff, don't worry about me, save the boy. It's too late for me, I'm 32, I'm too old to even worry about any of this. But somehow I got home, and when I got home, I realised there must be something I could do to stop my eyes getting worse. I wasn't even considering the possibility of improvement, but I was quite concerned that if my eyes were already 13 years worse, what was going to happen when I was 45, 55, 65.
Right.
And really the potential of going blind, that was probably there behind me as well. Mm-hmm. So I started experimenting with some of the exercises that my son had been given, and started researching what else was there. And some of that included the Bates material I found, but I also found material around massage. So I started doing a lot of massage work. And I found this thing at the time called Reiki, which I'd never heard of at the time, it's energy work. Mm-hmm. And started exploring, well, what's that got to do with it? And I was teaching accounting at the time, so all this was brand new to me whatsoever. But it sort of grabbed my curiosity just enough to do a little bit every day. And I went back to the optometrist after 2 months, and he said, you actually don't need glasses for reading anymore.
Nice.
And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I think that's when I took it seriously. Up until then, I probably only spent about 5 minutes a day, in all honesty. I wasn't doing it every day. I was trying to do it most days, but I was like, I'm not too sure about this. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I thought, if I could get out of reading glasses in 2 days, maybe it's no longer about just stopping my eyes getting worse, but maybe in 12 months, my eyes could actually improve. That was the next goal that I set myself. And as I did that, and I sort of went through that process, in actual fact, what I found is I was given then a reduced prescription. So I was in single lenses, but I went from minus 4.75 in 2 months to minus 2.5. So it was about a 1/3 improvement in my physical eyesight in terms of seeing distance. And that got me excited. So I started doing a lot more. I started wearing my glasses a lot less than I was doing. And I even got a weaker pair. I got a pair that was about minus 1.5, so about halfway between what I needed to get 20/20 and where my eyes were. And I got this sort of pair that was in the middle, so I could sort of operate sufficiently, but it still made my eyes work a little bit as I needed to get going. And so I sort of did that for a few months. I kept working with this, and literally 4 months after that, I passed a driver's license with 20/20 vision.
Nice.
And I can remember going to the motor registration branch, and I said, I've got this form that says I can take my glasses off. And they've looked at me and said, well, no one's ever done this before. Like, we normally put them on, we don't take them off. And they said, we're not going to charge you. we want to celebrate with you. And it's the only time I've been to a government department where they didn't charge me for doing that. And so that was, if you like, the start of what I see as my vision journey, getting to that point.
Great. And that hits home with me because just last month I went to the DMV, my license expired and I had to renew it. And last time it had been like 10 years, almost 8 or 10 years. And so last time I got my license, I had the restriction on the back there for corrective lenses. And I went in to renew the license and did the vision test and passed without glasses. So now my new license has no restriction on it. So it's such a good feeling when you get that tangible, measurable change in your vision.
That's right. And look, and I've found for me, it's one sign of what vision is about, but it's a very rewarding sign to get that for the first time. For myself, I wore glasses virtually 24/7. It was only when I was sleeping that I took my glasses off.
Same, yeah.
And to go from that to a situation where I don't wear glasses, and I actually found some of my old glasses recently and I put them on, it was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And it was almost going to give me a headache.
Yeah, it's like, how did I do this for so long?
That's right.
And it just feels so normal. You don't even think about it. And so I've worked with you in the past with EyePower. When did you start EyePower?
So look, this was back in '93 that I actually passed the license. 2 weeks later, they actually found, I went back to an optometrist because he was so excited for me. And he said, I've got this new device. And the new device was to check your peripheral vision. And I failed that miserably. Like literally, despite the fact I got 20/20 on an eye chart, I had no peripheral vision. And 2 weeks later, I was operated on with a pituitary tumour. They found that sitting on the optic nerve. And it went from a situation where this was sort of fun, a bit novelty sort of stuff, to being life and death situations for me.
Yeah.
So I went through this process of, first of all, I had one operation and they wanted to reoperate. And I said, well, you've had your chance. And by that stage, I started reading self-help books and what else I could do. And I remember biding some time and said, give me 3 months. And they gave me 3 months. And then I got another scan that was the same. So there was no change. I got another 3 months and 3 months. So I basically lived for a number of years just getting MRIs every few years. And then waiting, for, a bit like an exam, waiting for the results, hoping.
Yeah.
Well, part of me was almost not just hoping for no change, but I was really hoping for that tumour to be decreased.
Yeah.
And I can remember actually being really disappointed when they were saying, this is great news, there's no change. And I'm going, but I really want it to decrease, not to have change, and I want it to be one of the miracle stories. And nothing really started shifting in that area until I let go of that need to, I've got to have change to prove that I was somehow a healer now that I was doing Reiki and things like that at the time. I can't even heal my own self, so what's going on? But I went back teaching for a little bit, and eventually with the tumour there was just so much pain that I had to leave teaching.
Right.
And I actually got really quite sick. I had trigeminal neuralgia, which is like a pain, nerves just absolutely go havoc. Really quite ill. And so by this time, people had noticed that I wasn't wearing glasses. And that side of it, people were coming to me saying, can you show us how you did what you did? And I really started off with very small groups and some individuals, but it really wasn't part of what I was doing. I was just helping some friends. This is what I did, it helped you. And then 1997 was when I really had to leave teaching. And it got to the stage they even paid out my permanent death and disability. Like they thought, really, I had less than 12 months to live at that stage.
Wow.
So, unbeknown, I was not one to go, well, okay, well, I'm just going to sit home and die now. You know, like just wasn't my nature to do that. And so I decided that I didn't like that whole train of thought. And my old train of thought was, okay, the worst case scenario, and if it's any better than that, then so be it. But what I had to do in this case is I had to change my mindset to the best possible scenario. And the best possible scenario is, what if I didn't die? What would I be doing in another 4 or 5 years? I no longer be teaching. So in 1997, I did I had this program for New Start people for starting work. And so I got on it, and I actually was setting up this program for Eyesight that I want to help people with improving their eyesight as my business.
Cool.
And coming from an educational background as a teacher, it made sense that was a natural progression. And I remember going to register, and I had this idea of calling it Vision Empowerment. It's a great name. Still think it's a great name.
Yeah.
And I went down to register, and they said, look, we're really sorry, this is registered by someone else.
Oh, yeah.
And I've gone, no, it can't be. I said, this is like divine intervention, this name, you know, like I have to have it. You have to tell the others they can't have it.
Yeah.
And they just all looked at me and said, sorry, see you later. What's your second choice? And I said, I don't have a second choice. This is it.
No plan B.
No plan B. So I went off really home, fairly disappointed, and I turned the radio on. And sometimes when you turn the radio, you get inspired. And there was an Australian band, which you may know, called In Excess. And there was the song played by In Excess. And I was thinking to myself, how clever that name that they had, the INXS, to be In Excess. And immediately the vision dropped to I, and the empowerment dropped to power on the way home.
Nice.
And it shifted the energy from sort of a bit of a new agey sort of a name to something that was really quite solid.
Yeah.
And it was still about empowering self. Like EyePower is not only just about eyesight, but empowering who I am.
Yeah.
So I went back the next day and registered that business, and it was been there ever since. So my business name is still called EyePower.
That's awesome. I love that story. Did you ever write to InXS and let them know you were inspired?
No, I think they've probably got enough fan mail about me, so the name was fine. Not a bad idea though.
Cool. And I know the first introduction I had to you and your work was at the 2015 AVE Association Vision Educators Conference in LA. And I remember you kind of did like a sort of an icebreaker thing on the first day to kind of get everybody on the same page, and we played Conversations, the game.
Sure.
So do you want to let us know a little bit about what that is?
Look, my work is, in some ways, it appears varied. Like people think you do this and you do this and you do this. And yet I see a connection with all the work that I do. So part of the work that I do is directly with eyesight. We help people with exercises, help them with their eyes and do that sort of process. Part of it is what I call life vision mentoring. And life vision mentoring is about bringing the best of each person, bringing their frequency and vibration, if you like, up to the highest possibility so that they can create miracles in their own life. The third area is an area that you're talking about. And I went to bed one night, a bit frustrated. I said, what am I meant to do with my life? And I literally woke up with a dream about this board game called Conversations. And I spent the next 3 days putting this game together. And that was the basis of what actually is out now. It's a physical board game that's out there. And what this game is about is a way of dropping the normal penalia people do with each other, of going like, oh, how's the weather and what's happening with the football and all those sorts of things. And we're sort of shirking around each other to jumping in and really having a connection with each other. And one thing I noticed is that people often have a process like a tennis game. I often use that scenario. And this person talks and this person talks. And they're back and forth. Yeah. And they may or may not even be on the same conversation. Like this person could be talking about this. Oh yeah, and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And they're not really connecting. Yeah. So what I've done is we've taken and stripped that right back and talk the game teaches people to really communicate from a heart space. So we have to, number one, speak authentically. We have to speak what's real. When we get a card, we have to talk about that card.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no other extra stuff about my, grandfather did this and here's a whole story about this. It's like, well, for me, I'm feeling this in this process. So we're really getting down to some core issues. Now that's the first part of the game that I can actually organise through these cards. The second part, we can set up rules, and that's what we've done, where we get other people. I used to call active listening, but I now call it empathically listening. So we get to listen with our whole body and to feel what's going on. So even when I'm telling you my story now, part of this could be, I can relate to that as well. That's my story. So it's a bit like when I was telling you the initial story, going, yeah, that was my story as well. Mm-hmm. So when you empathically listen, you can take in what's being said for them, and you're also applying what's being said for yourself. So the second part of this, all of a sudden we have a real conversation now. So even though I may be the only person speaking, I'm sitting here, I'm speaking authentically, you're empathically listening to what I'm saying, and not sort of waiting for a place to jump in or to say, oh, that reminds me, and one-upmanship, we've got to beat that, that sort of stuff. So we actually get to sit back and if you like, take that breath and just come back in. Go, yeah, I can relate to that. And I don't need to even comment.
I was noticing that recently, just how many times when someone's speaking to me that there's this thing in me that just wants to tie it back to me, or like, oh, that reminds me of this experience I've had, or this or that. And it's really neat when you kind of push pause on that impulse and you just let it kind of sink in and instead of constantly thinking of what you're going to respond with. And if you want to just explain the cards a little bit, so it's like
so there's three cycles. There's three cycles, and the final thing that happens, just to finish that, the final thing that happens when we do that I can't organise, is that this magic happens where people connect to each other and go, yeah, we're all more similar than what we actually think we are. So they connect, not only do they connect more with their eyes, but they connect more with their being.
And each other.
Yeah. And so the cards actually has three cycles. The first cycle is an aspect of life. And that's a bit like an appetizer, if you like. We get a bit of a taste of what's going on, what's happening, what's the situation in my life. Could be family and friends, career, money, health. We get to look at one aspect and say, where am I sitting in terms of this aspect? Then we move in, and that's sort of like an icebreaker to start even in the game.
Yeah.
The second cycle is a life card cycle, and I nearly called it the drama cycle. Because this is the stuff, this is like the meat and the potatoes, this is your main meal. And in this main meal, you get to look at an issue that's going on. It might be something like, I can't say no, or no one really hears me. It's something that generally comes up in people's life, and the responses are normally like, that's exactly right. Like most people play this, and I've done this game over 1,000 times now, go, that's it, I can relate to that. And then somehow they go in even further and understand a little bit more about what actually happened. Now sometimes they go, I don't relate to that, or I used to relate to that, and it's for someone else in the group.
Right.
So it has a way of being exactly right, regardless of what card comes up. And then the third cycle, I called it an inspiration cycle, and it's about stepping out of the drama and seeing life from a probably slightly higher perspective. And so these are things like, you are sent nothing but help in your life. And when you think about that, it's sort of true, isn't it? Like, well, actually, yeah, the help seems to turn up just when I need it. So we're able to shift from an aspect, from a drama component, life component of that aspect, and recognise that everything's actually okay as it is. And they're the ones that really start to bond people, because people can really relate to those cards. So I've been really excited having used that, and then that's sort of part of what I do now to bring people together like that vision group.
Yeah.
So that we can find a really quick, simple way of connecting to each other.
Yeah, on deeper levels instead of just, oh, where are you from? Or, yeah. And so when you say a cycle, that means everybody goes around.
There's a process you go around, and the interesting thing I've done in this game is whoever goes last in each cycle goes first in the next one.
Oh, okay.
So no one goes last all the time even.
Yeah.
We've really made little nuances in there so that people get to experience going last and then they get to experience going first, and it has a different feel to it.
Yeah.
Or what have it.
And so, and you like train people to facilitate these experiences, right? Like,
Yeah, we've got facilitators around the world. So people who want to purchase the game, for example, can just purchase a game
yeah,
and play it with their family and friends. Like that's really what it was designed for. I'd love every family to be playing. The children and the adults actually finding out. And some of the best testimonials I got. I had one from a grandparent and a grandchild. They both sent me a note to say they had their first ever real conversation with each other.
that's powerful.
And the granddaughter got to see the grandfather as a person, not just, that's just granddad,
Right,
he's great
yeah.
to play with. And vice versa, the grandfather says, this is just not my grandchild, this is an amazing person. So people get to have that experience, and that's what I really like. So people can do that, and then some people choose, well, look, I really want to take this out in my workplace and facilitate other groups.
Yeah, and the
People
community.
say, I want to do what you do. And
Yeah.
so I've started this facilitation process where people can learn to be a facilitator and charge for facilitating games and make it part of their livelihood.
Yeah, because I imagine that would work really well in corporate setting or just in a community kind of setting. And
I've done everything from corporate settings to church settings, and
Yeah,
it works
yeah.
like the whole gamut. And even sporting groups, where
Yeah.
people are not too sure how to, we've got to be persona, or we're all tough here, and da-da-da. And they actually get to find out that they've really all got the same issues that they're sort of trying to hide from each other, but they're sort of there anyway.
well, I can just imagine how much even more important this is now, even than compared to when you originally made it.
Sure.
Just with the evolution of technology and social media and how we communicate these days is so impersonal and through a screen. And so to really be able to sit down with somebody and even if you have an opportunity to sit down with somebody, sometimes you don't know what to say and
Sure.
you just stay on the surface, and this gives you the opportunity to really dig a little deeper. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I used to actually take it away with my partner. So we went away, and when you got kids, you got wife, kids, family, job, career, and we were together. We'd often talk about either money issues or
Yeah.
what's happening with the kids.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? And we sort of lost that little bit of what
Yeah.
about us
Yeah,
again?
the connection.
And
Yeah.
so we used to, even though I was part of my work, I used to take the game away and we'd play it as a way of dropping all the other stuff that's happening in life, so that we had a connection again ourselves.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also remember playing conversations with the Life Vision Mentor group, because I joined your Life
Sure.
Vision Mentor group last year. And yeah, it was just amazing it's just so neat to listen and to hear people's responses, and it really gives them an opportunity to show a part of themselves that maybe wouldn't have come up.
Exactly.
otherwise.
I use it for all the beginning groups. Life
Yeah.
Vision Mentoring is obviously part of what I do now. There's 6-month programs. And I always use it at the start of that as a way of getting people to connect. And what I've found is at the end of the 6 months, I virtually keep every person. They just don't want to leave,
Yeah.
So everyone who's been doing it has just stayed on. And we've created this community of really aware people who are supporting each other in ways that most people have never been supported.
Yeah. And on that topic, one of the other first things you introduced in that group was, like you mentioned earlier, we're trying to kind of raise our frequency and vibration. So if I'm getting this correctly, our frequency or our vibration is the sort of the inner
Yep.
kind of world, and then the frequency is kind of how we interact externally. So is there anything you want to kind of clarify on that?
That's actually a really good way of putting it. What I found is that I used to see both as the same. We talk about frequency and vibration as the same thing.
Yeah.
And what I found is I was able to separate the two, because I was doing all this personal development work, and yet my business was struggling, my relationships were struggling, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? And yet there was other people I'd see who are sort of way out in the world and they're succeeding, but their inner selves, you're thinking, I think you guys need to do a little bit more on your inner self.
Yeah.
And so we assume that as one goes up, the other will go up, but it's not necessarily the case. And so what my program does is to work with both. So we work with the individual to raise their individual connection to themselves and to source, whatever you want to call it. And we also work with their connection with how they're relating to the world. And, we can talk about that as law of attraction. We can talk about that as, being in the zone out in the world and things like that. But it's allowing those sort of miracles to start to happen. And what I've noticed with everyone in the group is everyone who's done the program have reached, and in some cases a lot quicker than I did, because I had to work through this myself first. But then people are working through, literally within that 6-month period, vibrations well above, and in most cases double of what they've ever had in their life. And the same with frequency, and moving it to a whole new level, if you like, because there's actually higher frequencies above that. And in doing that, the response that's coming back to people, and you know that people are feeling more centered, they're feeling calmer, they're not reacting to life as much. Stuff still happens in life, like stuff still happens, I get annoyed, and then I go, okay, well, it's not really worth spending all this time getting annoyed about. I'll just go to sit, come back to here, and how do I deal with that, and that sort of stuff. So that sort of is part of the process. The other part is I've noticed that people's work has become more successful as well.
Yeah.
So people are starting new projects. I've got one lady who absolutely saw herself as a really good 2IC, now sees herself as a leader and is setting up her own programs.
Nice.
And part of my role with this program is to set up as many other people being leaders in their field. That's what I see my role as. So it's not to set up myself up as a guru and say, well, you come and watch me all the time and I'll do that. But it's about having those people like yourself step up and do the amazing work that you're doing. And that's what excites me.
And one of the big things that's sort of come out of that, of us working together, is what brings us together right now. We're in the San Francisco area. We're just kind of wrapping up this project of filming the Vision 2020 documentary. I was down in Australia in January, which is where you live in the Gold Coast, to go visit you and spend some time in person. And partly there, and then partly after I got back home, we kind of came up with this idea to put together this film of really putting this whole natural vision improvement work out into the world more, because we both, and all the other vision educators, if they'll let me speak for them, believe that just not enough people know about this stuff. Obviously there's wonderful people who already, listen to this stuff and are aware of this stuff, but just think about how many people, every day when I tell people what I do, like the majority of people, I've never heard of that before. I had no idea that was possible.
Well, 50% of the population are wearing glasses, so there's a lot of people that haven't heard what's happening.
We were just walking over the Golden Gate Bridge yesterday, and we were keeping a running tally of the people with glasses and the people without glasses. And in the short amount of time we were doing it, it was like 26 to 13, 11. So it was more than half had glasses or sunglasses. And we, who knows, maybe the people without them had contacts in or something like that. So
we know just from that 2/3 were wearing glasses for either seeing or sunglasses.
Yeah.
And 1/3 we don't know about. So we know even from that walk that 2/3 of the people, because when we say 50-60% of people are wearing glasses, we're not referring even to sunglasses, which also can have detrimental effects.
Yeah, so that's really the purpose of this project, is to get the word out there, and not just the word of what we're doing, but all these other amazing vision educators that are teaching this as well. What are your thoughts so far on what we've accomplished so far with it?
I think number one, it's amazing what we've done. Like, we've really have said, let's just do this. And we didn't have funding, we didn't have big backers behind us and things like that. But we said, look, this is so important, let's just make it happen. And things have just fallen into place to make it happen. That's the first thing I've noticed. Like, it's been fairly effortless in terms of getting that.
Pretty supported, yeah.
The number of vision educators who've put their hand up and says, we want to be part of this, has also been encouraging. And not only being part of it, but absolutely giving of themselves and showing aspects of themselves that they may not normally show. They're showing some of their vulnerable sides of their own weaknesses and their own issues that they've had. And they're sharing that with us in this documentary, but they're also giving us knowledge and their wisdom, for free, just to help you guys. Like, that is amazing. And I've been so touched by the depth of knowledge, not just the physical eyesight component, but the depth of insight that every one of these vision educators have shown. It's been awesome.
And it's one thing to be able to meet these teachers at conferences or to, you know, speak with them online or these things, but to actually go to their places where they work and they teach, it just shows a new side of them. You know, they're really proud of what they've built and what they've created. And, you know, I still have a bunch more interviews to do next week coming up in the East Coast, and then going over to Europe as well to conduct some more interviews. So just really excited to see what comes of this. And
each interview has just been exciting in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like part of me just wants to be there with you as well, because I've enjoyed hanging out with each of these people.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's been a really cool part.
Yeah. So definitely just wanted to introduce you to my audience and let them know that, you know, I've not only been friends with Barry for several years, but I actually kind of took it to a new level and have been you know, a part of his mentor group. And I've never really worked with a mentor before, or, you know, worked on that level with anyone. So it's been I've gotten a lot out of it and learned a lot from it. And would encourage you to check out anything. He's got all these different aspects he's got to his approach. So
the easiest way to find it is, like, Auchettl is my surname, which is too hard to spell, but it starts with AU, which is like Australia. So what I've got is barryau.com. So that's the easiest way, and that will show you all the aspects, whether it's vision, the conversations game, or the life vision mentoring. It's all there at Barry, BARRYAU.com.
Nice, and I'll put the links under the video and the podcast as well. And if you're curious about this Vision 2020 documentary, we did start a GoFundMe page where we're doing some crowdfunding. As Barry pointed out, we don't have any huge backers behind us at the moment, but we're really just kind of putting it to the viewer and to the public, because I know there's just great people out there who want this stuff. You know, there's not a film out there about natural vision improvement, so I think it's going to be kind of a one of a kind kind of thing. So if you go to gofundme.com/2020movie, that's where you can learn a little bit more about the project, what we're doing here, and even submit a donation or support. You can get a copy of the film or one of our books or online courses and stuff like that as a perk or benefit for donating to the project. So,
and even sharing that itself, sharing that and get that out to the world. So, you know, we really appreciate your donation. You know, we even more appreciate getting that out and letting other people know that there's something possible.
Yeah, because, you know, that's another cool thing about crowdfunding is even if people don't donate to it monetarily, just the social nature of it, of sharing it is, I mean, that's why we're making the film in the first place, is to just raise awareness, get the word out. So whether there's a donation or not, just sharing it on your Facebook or with coworkers or friends, or just letting people know. Certainly when it comes out, it'll be easier to tell people, hey, check out this movie. But until then, check out the GoFundMe page or his website or my website, just to keep updated with it. And it's going to be released in 2020 because, well, it's a nice pun with Vision 2020 Vision, but it's also the 100-year anniversary of Dr. Bates's publication of Perfect Sight Without Glasses in 1920.
We've just shot so much amazing film, really, in the last few days. You know, we've got hours and hours of amazing footage, and I just feel a little bit sorry for the poor editors, because somehow has to put this together, and I'm excited about seeing the end result of what this movie is going to be, putting all this amazing footage and the best of it together. You know, like part of me feels like we could put the whole 10 hours of footage that we've got already done.
Maybe we'll find a way to do that. We'll put out some bonus material and extended versions and stuff like that. So, because I mean, it's going to be hard to cut stuff out because everything we've heard is just so good. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Barry.
Right.
And sad to be parting ways tomorrow, but I definitely wanted to sit down with you and have a chat while we're here in person together.
And really good to meet everyone out there.